Hey, coach, most macro advice out there was written for the client that is going to weigh their oatmeal at 6 a.m. Now, this isn't the vast majority of your clients. This is the 10%. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about how I got it wrong and a better way that we can start thinking about macros. My name is Trevor, and this is Build with the CEO, where we help turn your coaching into a real business. And today, if you haven't guessed it, is all about macros. Now, we have a macro expert, Mrs. Eve Guzman, coming into the Nutrition Coaching Summit July 16th. And we also go into habit experts and some language experts and a whole bunch of experts on July 16th. So if you haven't grabbed a ticket to the free summit, down below this video in the description will be the link to grab it. And it is going to be pretty awesome. It's live. Each speaker has an hour. There's going to be Q&A. And so you're definitely going to want to show up to see these amazing people educate around the world of nutrition. So today we're talking about macros. And macros can be extremely powerful, especially when you get it right. But most clients don't actually get it right. And I want to help you avoid a mistake that I made way back in the day. So I got into this world via habits. That's kind of how I came into the world. It wasn't through macro tracking, it was through habits. And then I started to get some clients that were progressing, right? They were be what we call like a level 3 client. They needed some fine tuning. They need some dialing in. And so that's what introduced me to the world of macro tracking. So I went deep down the rabbit hole, learned everything that I could, and I helped my clients figure out their macros. And they did incredible with it for a period of time. Actually, let me walk that back. They did incredible with it after they were really, really bad at it. And let me explain a little bit more. So I think macro tracking is an incredibly valuable tool, but I made the mistake early on in just setting someone's macros, right? We do the formula, we figure it out, we set your macros and go. And I wondered why my clients just sucked at it. They just couldn't do it. Was it a discipline thing? They just weren't organized enough. They just sucked at it. And it wasn't until later in my career that I realized that they sucked at it because I sucked at teaching it to them. I just thought I could give them their macros and boom, they would go, they would start tracking their macros, they would get incredible results, and I would be the greatest coach ever. And that's just not the case, even for clients that are more advanced, right? They actually had to learn the art of tracking macros. And that wasn't here are your grams of protein, here are your grams of carbs, and here's your grams of fat. Go, here's an app, macros first, one of the best ones out there, right? Go get your app, track it all, boom, we're ready to go, and you're going to be awesome. No, like that's just not the case, because it's like tracking macros, there is a level of precision that is needed. So if I'm tracking macros in an app and just guesstimating, right, the amounts and things like that, it's kind of a glorified food log in a way, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So that actually could be all a client needs. Because if we think about the quote unquote diets or strategies that help clients be successful, call it habits, call it macros, call it food journaling, call it Weight Watchers, whatever, there's a level of awareness that we're creating within that program that is probably doing 90% of the work, or the 80-20 rule. It's probably doing 80% of the work because the client is now just becoming hyper aware of what they're doing. Right. So if someone starts tracking their macros, like whether they're tracking accurately or not, they're doing a I want to say high intensity, but that's not right word. Like a high tech food journal is what they're doing, right? But they're becoming hyper aware of what they're eating. You know, if they finish their kids' food, they have to track it. So it's like, oh, they notice that they're finishing their kids' food. If they're snacking in between meals, they have to write it down. So they start to notice that they're snacking in between meals. And then their behavior starts to change because they understand that those things aren't helping move them towards their goals. And so was it macro tracking or was it just awareness? Right. And so that doesn't matter. Like habits, macro tracking, food journaling, Weight Watchers, it all revolves around this concept of awareness, which I think is the first place to start. Right. That's why all of our clients, all of our nutrition coaching clients, the first thing they do is they food journal. And we make a ton of progress because they food journal, because they're aware of what they're doing. And then they just stop doing the extras, which then allows them to get into a caloric deficit and allows them to lose weight. It's pretty sweet. But there does come a point where we need to start fine tuning things a little bit more. And The mistake I made was, here's your macros, here's your app, good luck, go do it, figure it out. Where a good coach has a process in introducing that, right? Just like if a client didn't know how to cook, I wouldn't just give them a cookbook and be like, here you go, figure it out in your cookbook, right? I would teach them the steps they need to be successful, right? Just like with math, right? I don't start out doing calculus. I start out doing addition and subtraction, and then I do multiplication and division, right? And then I do algebra, right? There's a sequence to it. So I believe there is one with macros as well. And I believe we have to build clients up to it, right? And they can go a little bit faster, a little bit slower, which is fine, just like learning anything. And I think there's a season for macros. I think there is some value in tracking, but I think tracking over the long term can really start to create some issues, right? There's levels of obsession that can happen, right? There's kind of the all or nothing spirals that can happen. And really, there's some friction, right, to getting started. So, our goal, right? Our goal in what we're doing with a client, if their goal is to lose weight, is to get them to eat the right amount of food, right? Macro tracking is a way to get there. Habit tracking is a way to get there. Food journaling is a way to get there. Using your hands, right, for palms of protein, fists of vegetables, cups of carbs. Like these are all ways to get the client to eat the right amount of foods, right? And we see this with different diets, right? For example, a low carb diet, when we start to reduce a certain macronutrient, clients have a tendency to eat less, right? And so it works. There's nothing magical about the diet. That was a strategy that allowed them to eat less. And so there's lots of ways to get someone to eat the right amount of foods, but I want to kind of stay on the macro train here for a little bit, and then we'll talk about some other strategies as well. So if we are going to introduce macros, I think there's a way to introduce it that reduces some of the friction, makes it a little easier for the client, and then they ultimately get what they're trying to get out of it, which is precision. Okay. And so I think when we start macros, one, there needs to be an education process. Instead of here's your app, here's your macros, figure it out, right? How would we teach someone? So our process in teaching anyone macros, right away, it is food journaling with the app that they're going to use. Our favorite app is Macros First. I'll make sure I put it in the description. Don't get anything from them. I love Jacob over there. I think they built an incredible platform and it's connected with Coach Catalyst. It has a two-way sync, so it's pretty awesome for our coaches. And so I'm going to have the client download Macros First. That's really step one. I need them to download the app. And then I'm just going to ask them to start tracking their food, right? I don't really need amounts. They can guess whatever. I just want them to get familiar with putting information into the app. I don't even care what the macros are because they're probably not very accurate either, right? There's plenty of research and data out there. And off the top of my head, I want to say it's anywhere from like 30 to 50% wrong, right? If someone is just estimating what they're putting into their macro tracker. And so what we're trying to drive first and foremost is awareness. They're going to see some results, right? Because they are actively tracking what they're doing. And then I want familiarity with the tool that we're going to be using for macro tracking. And so we're going to then deliver a series of educational lessons that they get dripped out, really short ones that help kind of reinforce the process that they're going with, right? So we get them familiar with the app, and then we build some awareness around what they're doing, which is ultimately going to start getting them some results, right? So that's kind of step one with macro tracking. Step two with macro tracking, for most clients, this is the most common case, is we're going to start looking at protein intake. So really all we care about protein. I want them to become hyper focused on that particular macronutrient. This is going to introduce a few different things. First one, it's going to bring their awareness to protein. So they're thinking about protein every meal, which is a good thing, right? We could talk all about why protein is really important and how it helps with weight loss and satiety and all of these things, right? But we want them to start there. The second thing that us using protein right away for them to track is we're going to have them start to weigh it. Okay. So towards the end of part one or phase one, we're going to have them get a food scale and they're just going to start playing with it. Okay. And then we're going to start taking protein and we're going to have them start weighing it and then entering in the exact amount. And then we start to cover all the things like, well, do I weigh it before I cook it? Do I weigh it after I cook it? Right? We start to answer all of those questions because we're trying to develop precision in the process. So part two, phase two is looking at protein and it's looking at weighing. So now we're figuring out the amount. They're getting used to their food scale. They're getting used to weighing things. They're starting to get a visual around, all right, how much is 6 ounces of protein, right? And I could take everyone listening to this and have you guys, and give you guys just like a big old chicken breast, right? I give you a big old chicken breast and I say, cut this in a way where you have 6 ounces. And almost everyone, maybe someone would get lucky and get it right, but pretty much everyone's going to get it wrong, right? They're going to be a little high, a little low, a lot high, a lot low, right? It's just it's too hard to like. What is 6 ounces? People say like a deck of cards. Okay, like thickness, like there's too many variables, right? But weighing allows us to get precise. So I need the client to start understanding how to weigh, right? And we do it around protein because protein is the first one that we want to work on in our process with that client. Cool. So that's the first one that's like part two, right? Part one is awareness, getting used to the platform. Part two is protein. And then we should be seeing good results at this point. But part three, now we start moving into calories. So we want them to start looking at overall calories, right? And then I want them to start weighing the other aspects of their meal. So now we're going to start weighing our vegetables. We're going to start weighing our rice, our carbs, and we're going to start figuring out the fats that we're putting into our meals. And so macro tracking works really well when we are eating what I would call single ingredient foods. If we're eating things like, I'm in Minnesota, so like a hot dish, right? Or a goulash, right? Those are a lot harder to track. So when I'm putting someone through a tracking cycle, their foods are going to get pretty basic, not basic in like basic flavor, but just they're going to have chicken breast or chicken thigh. They're going to have rice. They're going to have a sweet potato. They're going to have broccoli, right? We have these kind of like single ingredient type foods, right? You can start getting into some packaged goods as well. And the labels on packages aren't always the most accurate either, but we want stuff that's easily trackable. I mean, we're not making chilies or things that have lots of ingredients. So these are things to think about, right? Because if you have a client that loves those types of things, macro tracking may not be the best solution for them, even though you might be a macro coach and that's how you get clients results, right? The best coaches have lots of tools, right? They don't just have a hammer. So part of the Nutrition Coaching Summit coming up on July 16th is to give you more tools in your toolbox, right? Give you the macro tool, give you the habit tool, give you the conversational tool, give you the behavior change tool, give you the pharmaceutical tool so that you can help clients be successful or get to their goals faster, easier, all of the above, right? So we've got part one, awareness. They are going to start playing with the app. Part two, we're focused on protein and we're starting to weigh. Part three, we're focused on calories and we're weighing the rest of our foods. So now we're weighing everything. We don't really care about amounts from carbs and fats at this point. I want to hit their calorie goal, right? And we want it to be within about 10. And then how we look at it for someone that's tracking really consistently is we look at weekly averages. So inside of Coach Catalyst, we're pulling all this data in from macros first. I see daily protein, carbs, fats, calories. And then I usually look at it over a 7 to 14 day time frame. And then I'm going to click a cool little button and that's going to average all of that for me. And so I can see, okay, cool. They had a high day here, they had a low day here, but what's their average over 7 days? Because that's how the body works, right? It works in averages. It works at this as it works in the sum of things. A single day doesn't make or break things. It's the sum of things. So we can easily see that data. So we're dialing in protein. They're starting to weigh the rest of their stuff, right? And then if we need to start making some adjustments, we'll start to manipulate carbs if we need to kind of adjust their calories and things around. So part one, get the app, play with it. We've got awareness around food. Part two, we're weighing our protein and we're focused on our protein and we're trying to hit our protein goal every day there. Part three, now we're weighing the rest of our food and now we're starting to hit our calorie goal. So the client has a singular focus each phase, right? But we're teaching the skill of tracking and now they're starting to understand the precision around tracking macros. And now macro tracking is extremely effective for dialing things in. This is not a solution for a level 1 client. Most of our clients that are coming to us are level 1 clients. We use a real food approach with those people. Let's just eat less processed food, and magically the client has a ton of success. Macros for me in our business is usually a level 2, maybe even a level 3 client where they've got those pieces dialed in. They're eating real foods the vast majority of the time. They understand what protein, carbs, and fats are, right? And now we can start to fine tune the process, right? And we need to understand our client psychology as well. Some people that are a little bit more obsessive compulsive don't always do well with this because they get so locked into the macros. But this is the art of coaching. This is understanding the person in front of you and coaching to them, right? Not necessarily using the only hammer that we have, right? So that's how we look at it from a macro standpoint. But you can get clients to start doing the macro thing without doing macros. Hand portions are a great one. This is taught by a bunch of different schools, but this is like a palm of protein, right? A fist of vegetables, a cup of carbs, a thumb of fats. So that's another way where a client can start to kind of organize how much they're eating. Because remember the goal. The goal is not macros. The goal is for the client to eat the right amount of food consistently. That is the goal. And how we get them to that goal will depend on the client's temperament, the client's psychology, the client's skills, your skills as a coach, right? That's how we get the client there. And this is irregardless of the client's goal. If it's weight loss, if it's muscle gain, right? We need nutrition is going to be a key driver in this process. And so we need to have those different tools to be able to help them. So the hand portions is great. If they don't have scales or anything like that, that works well. And then it also scales to people's body size, right? I'm a pretty big dude, so my hands are a little bit bigger, right? So I'm going to get a little bit more. My palm's going to be a little bigger, so my protein sizes are going to be a little bit bigger. And so like it works for those people that just want to guesstimate things, right? The next one then is like plate targets. This works really well for beginner clients too. Like we want maybe half our plate in vegetables, a quarter of our plate in protein, right? A quarter of our plate in carbs, or however you want to make that mix work, right? Maybe you want half the plate in protein, right? And so there's a lot of ways to help the client eat the right amount of foods. For you as a coach, it's to learn these different strategies so you can help the client be successful. Now, no process is perfect, right? You're finding the process that the client can actually stick to because we know in the grand scheme of things, consistency is what we need here, right? Um, and so with macro tracking, I like to use it as a precision tool for a short period of time. It really helps the client dial in amounts. How much is actually one serving of protein, or how much is 50 grams of protein, right? How much is 50 grams of carbs? You really get to dial that in with your eye, and then it's a whole lot easier to do it. But I rarely want a client, and I won't even say rarely, I never want a client to be tracking all of the time, right? I think there's seasons of it. Sometimes if things start to slip, we can bring it back in to help. But just also know that there are other strategies out there that can help people, right? The palm or the hand portions, the plates, having them check in with hunger cues, fullness cues, right? Stopping when they're satisfied, not stuffed. I mean, we could do stuff on this for days, right? But it's about having all of these tools in your toolbox so you can help the client be effective, right? And think about macro tracking for that client that is the level 2 or level 3 client. So they mastered some of the basics. In my experience, I've found those clients are the most successful, but then we don't just give them their macros and say, good luck. We put them on our macro education program. So over the course of 30, 60 days, we teach them the skills of macro tracking, right? Because it is a skill. I need to know how to enter stuff into my phone. I need to know how to weigh. I need to know what are good sources of protein, right? What are good sources of carbs, right? I need to have all these tools. I need to have a food scale. And so we can't just give stuff to a client and expect them to be successful, right? Just like you're teaching, lay it out step by step by step by step by step by step. And for anyone going to the Nutrition Coaching Summit on July 16th, I'm going to have a special gift for you if you are a Coach Catalyst user. So yes, I'm incentivizing you to go get Coach Catalyst if you don't already, because I'm going to give you an incredible gift that you can start using with your clients. Actually, I've got a couple gifts planned, maybe more, but you won't regret it. Get in there, play with it, start using it as a tool to coach your clients because it will make your coaching life that much better. Now, today was really about the basics, right? On the summit, other educators like Eve, they're going to allow you to go next level with this stuff. And so you want to make sure that you're in their circles to be able to absorb this. If you need to go back, if you need to go learn macros, go learn from people that are really good at it. If you need to go learn habits, go learn from people that are really good at it. Never stop learning. So if I haven't said it enough, July 16th, Nutrition Coaching Summit. We've got 11 people, 10 sessions coming in, a full day of education. It is completely free. There is a VIP upgrade that has over $6,000 worth of goodies in it. So definitely grab that. It will give you the replays for life as well. And so I'm going to be there. I'm hosting. I'm super excited about it. The speakers are excited about it. I've been going back and forth with them, helping make this an incredible event for you guys and for them because they're ready to deliver. So again, that's July 16th. It's going to be live, and get signed up. You'll see the link down in the description. This is Build with the CEO. My name is Trevor, your resident CEO, and this show is all about helping you take your coaching and build a real business so that you can change a whole ton of lives. Until next time, see you later.